All right. I think it's recording now, just for people who can't make it. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. And we all know each other, but that's totally fine. Um, for people watching this later, this is a project that hi, I'm Elena, by the way, and I'm the author of the Midnight Land, but I'm also a Russian professor, and Madison was a former student who went on to get a graduate degree in illustration. So this is a project that we're doing together, and we have some people on the call who are all friends and family. But we have backers who I do not know personally as well. So it's not just friends and family. But nonetheless, a huge thank you to the friends and family in particular who have supported us for this. This is our first Kickstarter and it's very exciting. Um, and I don't know, since it's such a small group, and we all kind of know each other, I had like a whole spiel planned, but I probably don't really need to do it so much. So maybe I'll talk for a minute or two about the book, and then Madison can talk about the illustrations. And I have the hard copy, like proofs of the hard copy of the first book that we can admire the illustrations, and very happy we're very happy to answer questions, and we've already started thinking about illustrations for the second book, so maybe we can even brainstorm about that a little bit. Um, so yeah, thank you to everyone for coming. And oh, you lost your mom, Madison.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Ruh-roh.
Uh-oh.
She's
Uh-oh.
texting me. Yeah.
Oh, mama.
Oh yeah. I noticed that my parents are not here either. I don't know if and they also backed the project. They're very excited about it too.
Well, we think Madison is amazing. Want to support her in any way that we can. So,
She is
yeah.
amazing. It must be supported. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, this book I wrote, and it's a duology, so it's a two-part series. And here's Madison's awesome cover for book one. And I wrote it while I was in grad school. And I wrote the first draft of it while I was in grad school, and or not always, but my family moved to Russia from the US when I was a teenager. So we went
Wow.
the
Okay.
other way, the other way. In the early 90s, we moved from the US to Russia. Oh, here comes your mom again, Madison. And so I had that experience of living in Russia and having this real immersion experience in Russia of the 1990s, which was a very wild and wacky place. Um, and at the same time, I developed a huge love of epic fantasy, and I wanted to write something kind of like, well, Game of Thrones was my big inspiration. That came out when I was, oh, you're a Game of Thrones fan too? Yeah, so I was given a first edition of the original Game of Thrones book when it first came out. My mom gave it to me. She was given it as a promotional thing, and she gave it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do something like this someday, but in a Slavic, like East European world with, sort of more female focused female characters. Um, but it wasn't until I ended up in grad school that I actually sort of did that. The title, The Midnight Land, came because I was taking old Russian literature for the second time, as you do, while I was in grad school. And the Midnight Land in older, archaic Russian and Slavic languages means the north. It means the far north. Um, and I was like, oh, that I'm going to write a short story, maybe a novella based on that. And I ended up writing this 1,000-page fantasy epic. And I was like, oh, I finally did it, the 1,000-page fantasy epic that I've been meaning to write for 15 years. So I published it, and obviously it hasn't made me $1 million, but it has won some awards and written other books in the series and all of that. And when Madison told me that she was doing illustration, I thought, we should team up and do a color illustrated version of this and do a Kickstarter. As because I'd wanted to try both of those things. I was like, let's just bring it all together. So that's how we ended up here. And Madison, I don't know if you want to tell sort of your story about how you got into all of this, and then maybe some of your inspiration for the themes behind the illustrations and the cover, because you had some really interesting thoughts about how, ideas about how to make the cover and stuff.
Sure. Hi, I'm Madison. I know both people on the call currently are very close to me and know me very personally, but for those who are going to be watching this later, I was a Russian art double minor with an anthropology major in college, and I never quite knew when to say no about learning new things. I like learning about everything. I learn whatever the world is willing to teach me. And I love fantasy. I love character work. Those are things I really, really like to draw. My day job, I work in a museum setting. I'm a collections coordinator. So I spend a lot of time working with records and preservation and making sure stories get passed down to the next generation through objects and through records. So I'm passionate about stories, I'm passionate about storytelling, and I'm passionate about making people's visions, their visual visions that maybe they can't do themselves, they don't have the time, come to life. So I really love doing that. When I was looking at the book, I love Slavic mythology. I like Vasilina the Beautiful. It's basically an early Cinderella, except if Cinderella goes on like a vengeance quest and she gets magical fire powers from a witch in the woods. Um, so instead of marrying the prince as a final revenge, there's fire. But I was really influenced by a lot of the old Russian beautiful palaces, as well as old Russian royal clothing, the crowns, specifically the ones that are the curvature, as you can, yeah, that's Vasilina the Beautiful. And behind her is Baba Yaga. If you're a John Wick fan, he's called Baba Yaga, which is an incorrect pronunciation of Baba Yaga, who is a witch who rides around in a house with chicken legs, which I think is the coolest thing in the world. I mean, I don't know who thought of that, but it's amazing. So this old folklore element, as well as elements of that beautiful, gorgeous Russian what's the word? Detail and like the beading and the pearls and the just really beautiful, minute details that go into making really beautiful outerwear. Oh, I think you might be muted
Oh,
for
you're right. Sorry. I'm seeing if I can bring up some images of like traditional Russian clothing and stuff. I know.
it's got really rich, beautiful color that I love, as well as those really interesting like embroidery and pearl details. I also brought in a little bit of Art Nouveau to it as well because I'm a massive Art Nouveau fan. It's one of my when I do classical illustrations, and it just I feel like it goes so well together. I mean, look at that, and tell me that's not meant to be in like an Art Nouveau place setting. You can kind of see it in the first cover, the way it's arched and yeah, like that arch and the weaving elements are all very Art Nouveau themed. And I love a good little critter. So there's a fox, is that a fox,
There's a
right? Fox and a
fox and
rabbit,
a rabbit, a hare, yeah. So
a
like
hare.
Arctic fox and an Arctic hare, yes, yes. So
So I love a good little critter.
yeah, yeah. So they're both like major secondary characters in the story. Because I love animals, Madison love animals. Animals are a major thing in the story and the illustrations.
I'm also really big on flower language in my work. So I there's flowers on the cover as well. Um, Trying to call back to what exactly those meant, but I think they're a perseverance flower.
Yeah, and there's also some snowdrops here, and the book starts off in winter and goes into spring, and the main character has these thoughts about how she's a sort of a snow flower or a flower that blooms in the snow, and indeed it starts off in winter and goes to spring, so there's this motif of early spring flowers and like winter going into spring. Yeah. So I guess maybe we can stop there and ask, are there any questions? I think Stephanie, I think you're muted.
Yeah. I have a question. So, I saw this, it shows as a box set. Are have those been written, or is this this is support for you to write these, the remaining books in the series?
So the book, so it's a box set for the duology, the two book sort of
Okay.
miniseries, and the books have been written.
Okay.
So this is basically to do the illustrations for book two and the
Okay.
slipcase for book two.
Right. So this is sort of anniversary edition with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
illustrations and everything, which I think is amazing. And, that's really attractive to a lot of people. Yeah.
Thanks.
Particularly in that genre, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. 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 So this is actually a 10th anniversary edition, like the original I put the book out 10 years
Mm,
ago.
yeah.
How time flies. So now, yeah, it's a box. So the book's all written. So it's a boxed set with hopefully we'll have like a beautifully illustrated slipcase for the books to go
Mhm.
in. And then yeah, this is basically to do the illustrations
Okay.
slipcase to do it. And I've also recorded the audio book. So there will also be an audio book along with it as
Oh,
well.
wow. Great.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. Any other questions, comments in this massive group we've got here?
I know.
We're very excited to see what you guys come up with for the illustrations.
Well, if you want to, maybe we can do a little brainstorming right now. I don't know if because not to put you on the spot or anything, Madison. I sent Madison some ideas over yesterday afternoon,
Let
and I
me
was
pull
like,
them up again.
yeah, I was like, we're funded, we're funded. We got to start thinking about this. Yeah, I need to pull mine up too.
I
Uh,
watched her do some of the some illustrations, and I was like, how do you do that? Pretty amazing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, so I had some sort of ideas like of stuff to go, from scenes from book two, but I guess we kind of want overall uh things to kind of match, like they have to be similar but different for book two.
Mm. So is book two held in the same sort of seasonal time, or it's different?
So
Is
book
it like more spring than winter, or
yeah, book one
yeah?
all takes place in the winter, and book two starts in late winter and ends in early spring.
Okay.
And there's like, I don't know if I want to reveal spoilers or
Yeah.
not.
That's okay. Yeah.
Uh,
That's your choice. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, so um hmm, hmm, uh I'll just say that something happens in the heroine's personal life that sort of relates to spring and
Mm.
fecundity and
Okay.
and things like that. That's part
Okay.
of the storyline.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
I won't, yeah, I'll try not to spoil it
Yeah.
here, but
I know
yeah,
my
it's
mom
just
said I'm very excited about reading it. I was like,
Yeah.
it's great. It's good. You should.
Um,
you're
yeah, I'm not very artistic though. I mean, I just think about themes. You talked about the importance of that, about the winterlands and
Mhm.
and I know I saw some of the drawings that Madison had done with the Northern Lights and all of those things that are so amazing. So
I was at your house when I did that, wasn't I?
yes, you were.
Yeah, let's see
Yes.
if I can
Yeah.
bring up then um that Northern Lights illustration is really awesome.
Yeah,
That
it's
took
incredible.
me
Yeah.
so many tries to
Yes,
get
yeah.
right.
But you did it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. That looked really good.
Yeah.
That looked really good.
Yeah.
A minute. I'm proud of it, but it took me figuring out how to draw the lights like that took me a really long time.
Yeah, yeah, no, it looks really good.
She
And
did a fantastic job. I knew she could do it.
Yeah.
My mom was sending me Pinterest boards of
Picture
lights
of
and was
it.
like this. You need to do it like this.
Well, and I
Oh,
love the Northern Lights background you've got
mhm,
going on there too.
mhm.
Thought it was
It's
fitting.
it's so
Yeah.
with the sort of I want to say costumes of the characters or their clothing, which Madison, you talked about the interest in that, and is have circumstances changed so that they might be more decorative or less decorative, that kind of thing, without telling,
Right, right,
revealing the
right.
plot. But I think about that.
There's like some scenes where there's a couple scenes where they'd be more decorative, and then there's a lot of scenes where there'd be less
Hmm.
decorative. And it would sort of it would depend on whether we wanted to go with the more decorative or less decorative. The like the scenes that I was thinking of for illustrations are mostly happening like outdoors while they're traveling. So there's
Yeah.
nature and there's animals. So I don't know how you feel about drawing a giant wolf, Madison.
Yeah, I know. And I love wolves.
You would love that. I'm just
I'm happy to do that for you. I love it. I love a good wolf. I love a
yeah.
good
I'm
canine. I'm
like,
happy to.
she'd be totally on board with that. Yay!
Wolves,
And
rabbits,
yeah,
hares.
haven't
I'm
they
here.
haven't they brought back the dire wolves with the
Well, the
science
puppies, they
and
made little direwolf
DNA,
puppies.
yeah, whatever splicing or whatever
They
they
also made woolly mice.
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
They took woolly mammoth DNA and they made woolly mice.
Yeah, that's freaky.
I
But
love those little
okay.
guys.
But the
They're
dire
like,
wolf is pretty cool actually.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if we have the ecosystems to support it out in the wild anymore, but it would be cool to like have them hanging out on a sanctuary or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, like the one of the scenes I was thinking because the first illustration you have for book one is the main character meeting a big moose, an elk, like European elk, what we call moose here in North
Mhm.
America.
Yeah.
So I was thinking kind of like sort of a parallel thing in the second book where she meets a giant wolf. So it's like her meeting an animal in the wild. Um, and so if you're down for doing a giant wolf.
I'm always down to do
With
giant
That's
Twilight
animals.
cool.
involved. Did you hear Dad? He's like Twilight.
I'm sure there's some embarrassing Twilight fan drawings in a
I'm
notebook
sure there
somewhere
are, but
in the
no.
basement. I'm
Hang
sure.
on. Let me. This is related to a particular a particular. There we go. I'm going to bring it up. This is a related to a particular Russian fairy tale. I'm going to do a screen share in a second. So this is I don't know how
Oh,
familiar
wow,
everyone is
cool.
with
Yeah.
Russian fairy tales, but this is Princess Elena the Beautiful. So obviously, I've always had a fondness for Princess Elena the Beautiful. This is Ivan Tsarevich, presumably, and then they ride around on this giant wolf called Gray Wolf, who saves them periodically. So I brought in the character of Grey Wolf into the stories because there's lots of stuff from Slavic folk tales and
Okay.
mythology. Yeah, and you can see the incredibly ornate clothing and
Hmm.
headdresses that they have.
Beautiful.
I love the
Yeah.
mittens.
Yeah. And so does the wolf have human qualities other than intelligence or
So he speaks
yeah,
like
okay.
telepathically,
Yeah.
but he can talk to
Okay.
the human characters telepathically.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love
yes.
the is it Liesha? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, so in Slavic mythology, there's this thing called a lieshi, a wood spirit. But in my story, a lot of the things that are masculine in the original Slavic mythology are feminine in my mythology. So I call them lieshaya, they're female wood spirits. Um, yeah, and I do actually have an idea for maybe including some Lieshia in one of the
No, I
illustrated.
was gonna say I'm on board. I love drawing their eyes. They have the coolest eyes.
So it would be cool if we had like some eyes in each scene potentially.
I'll make it work. I'll find a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned Twilight. Actually, my director,
Hmm.
who directed me in grad school, she did illustrations for the Twilight Illustrated guide. She's in
Really?
there. Yeah, her name is Rebecca Bradley. She's an awesome illustrator. She's on Instagram. She's great. She did some of the illustrations, like the necklace and I think the bracelet that Bella gets. She did those illustrations. We found that out. We're like, whoa.
I'm looking this up right
She's
now.
done cooler things. That's the crazy thing. But everyone was floored about the Twilight thing. We were all so excited. We were like, oh my God, that was you. But yeah. So I spent a year studying with her, and the past year I've grown quite a bit. I've ended up becoming very fond of Chinese motifs and Chinese styles because over half my graduate program was Chinese. They were all Chinese. So I ended up adopting a few of the principles of that kind of design style. So I'm looking forward to seeing how much I obviously they need to match as much as possible, but it'll be interesting to see how my skill has developed because between the last one and this one, I'll have a graduate degree under my belt, so it's different.
Yeah.
I'm
And
excited.
Dr. Clark, I just want to let you know that Madison has continued with her Russian studies,
She's told me this.
I
Yeah.
never stopped. Я люблю
which is amazing.
Россия язык. Я люблю интересной
Grammatical, da da da.
грамматику. Ха-ха-ха.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that accusative case. It's right there. Yes,
It gets you
absolutely.
every time.
It does. That это прекрасно, это прекрасно. I said, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah.
I know. I wonder if Sam's keeping up. Sam was my contemporary. He
I don't
was
know.
the other student. He's in Hawaii right now.
Is he? I
He
did.
enlisted and he's stationed in Hawaii.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
That's a good
He's like, I'm
nice
gonna be in
thing.
paradise for 3 years. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, you are, Sam. Yes, you are.
Has he invited you out there?
No,
Okay.
well, we're friends, but I don't think we're that
Okay.
close.
Wow, I didn't know that he was in Hawaii. That's great. That's great. Yeah, is he
It's on his Instagram.
okay, okay. I don't follow him on Instagram. Maybe I should. Is he flying helicopters as planned?
I don't know. I haven't seen any helicopters. I've been on a helicopter.
Have you?
We were doing an event for work, and one of the colonels was like, "You want to get on a helicopter?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to say no to that." So I got on a helicopter and I flew
Awesome,
around.
awesome. Wow. Yeah, yeah,
The
wow.
perks of working for the military. It's fine. I feel like almost everyone who studied Russian, most of them go into military or government work, I feel like.
That is the normal career path. Yes. Pretty much, yes. So yeah, and I don't know what's up with the other Sam or with John. So these are all Russian majors and minors that graduated recently that were in Madison's cohort. So I guess we can stop gossiping about them, but good to know about Sam. Yeah. We were sort of thinking about the illustrations and the cover and yeah, I really like stuff like the curving sort of this line here of the tree and stuff, and that's really nice. And
Love it too. Don't worry. That didn't change.
yeah. But I was still thinking it's like, the more trees, maybe we could throw in some trees with the golden eyes, in the illustrations and or the cover. The snow fox, like here, like, can I see if it's showing
No
up?
Fox
The
friend.
fox and the hare, like they could maybe show up again on the,
Arctic hares. Oh, I'm sorry. I
go
didn't mean
right
to cut you
ahead.
off. I was saying Arctic hares are really fun to draw because I feel like they're shapeshifters. They'll, if they loaf like a cat, they're like this blob, but then when they stand up, it's just all muscle, all of it. And they're very lanky and long and kind of weird looking in like a fairy tale kind of a way, but I like to draw them because you really can. They are like little shapeshifters. They change their weight and look completely different.
Awesome. Well, I think maybe the hair should show back up in the next cover too. And we've got to think about what to do for the slipcase as well.
Yeah.
and how to do that. Um,
Rabbits.
rabbits. Sorry, yeah, yeah.
Rabbits everywhere.
Rabbits everywhere. I like it. And I was also thinking about stars like as a motif because stars become this like bigger and bigger motif as the story goes on.
I had a constellation obsession when I was in high school or middle school into high school. And
Okay.
I had a telescope and I would do a lot of I did a lot of uh doodling of constellations because the my
Nice.
favorite one of my favorite things to do, which we could talk about for this, is you can make a constellation of the stars, but then you can superimpose an illustration of the constellation on top of it. People do that frequently, and this is a pencil, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Um, it's like fading it out. But you could do like Orion is one that people like to do it with, and they'll put the stars so you can see the stars shine through, but then you'll see him with his bow, or you'll see him like a weird thing with the hands. You'll see him
Yeah.
in
Right, right.
corporeal form,
Right,
kind
right,
of
right.
see-through
Yeah.
almost, so that you can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that could be really cool. Maybe we could have like a constellation because this is a made up world, so the constellation can be whatever we want.
Yeah.
Constellation that looks like a wolf or something.
Yeah, that would be really cool for the slipcover to have
Yeah.
some of the animal constellations going, and then inside, then you pull it up and it's more of the more concrete illustrations. But yeah, that'd be fun.
No, that's a
I
great
love that.
idea. I love that idea. Yeah, yeah.
So if you'll pardon me for one moment, I'll be right back.
No problem. No problem. Um, yeah, well, I feel like, it's great brainstorming that we're doing here. Other like questions, anything that people want to know or ideas that you have.
I have a question.
Mhm.
When do you anticipate the release of this box set?
So the hope is to have it all done by October, that we'll ship
Mm,
everything out in October. So obviously Madison has to like do the illustrations, which will
right.
take a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And so then she has to do the illustrations. They have to be inserted into the books and formatted, and then all sent off to the printer, and they have to be printed. And then we have to get proof copies and
Right.
check them to make sure that they're okay. So that is all going to take a couple of months.
Yeah.
Because it's actually quite slow. So in general, it's kind of slow to get this kind of thing printed and
Mhm.
shipped.
Yeah.
And right now, printers are having a lot of slowdowns. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still sort of an issue. So hopefully everything will be, the goal is to have everything ready, like and shipped to everyone in October. And I think, on our end, I'm pretty confident that we can have everything done reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
The slow part is getting it printed and shipped from the printer.
Right.
And I'm not using a Chinese printer. I'm actually planning to use a British printer.
Mm.
Um, which is better than Chinese. So people using Chinese printers are running into all kinds of problems right now. So I'm glad that I decided to use a British printer. It would be even better to use a US printer,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, there aren't a lot of good US print. Like
Yeah.
the best printer for this thing is in Peterborough, England, weirdly enough.
Okay. That's neat.
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
using.
So that's what I'm thinking about. Like, so I could give everybody copies for Christmas. I'm thinking
Right,
ahead on
right. I
Christmas
mean,
presents. Yeah.
yeah, like it should. I mean, unless something just horrendous goes wrong with
Mhm.
international shipping, which,
Right. Yeah.
we really hope that doesn't happen, but it should all be ready sort of like mid-fall is the goal. Um, yeah. So, if you do want copies, um, yeah, just I guess order them or let us know and
Yeah.
we can have them ready.
Yeah. I mean, Madison will let me know when it's all done and everything. Right, Madison?
Oh yeah. See you tomorrow, actually. For the boy.
Good, good, good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the timeline. And again,
This is
the
very exciting. Oh, I
I
just want
think
to
so.
say
Yeah.
thank you for including, I'm going to just speak for myself,
Mhm.
to be included and, be able to ask questions and things like that. Because you can tell Madison, I mean, Madison can attest this. I'm a huge reader. My husband and I are, and we love books and we love, authors, and we love a lot of different types of books. Yeah, it's really cool to be able to hear you talk about this and Madison respond and be able to ask questions. So I really
You can't
appreciate that.
see it, but there's two bookcases behind her
Yeah.
to the side and another one downstairs
Yeah. And upstairs, there's a
and
few
upstairs.
up there too. So, and we have, probably 50 boxes in the attic. And my husband keeps taking books to the second and Charles and coming, like he takes 2 boxes and comes back with 1 box. And I'm like, it's not supposed to work that way.
A win's a
I mean,
win.
yeah, because at some point we have to downsize, in
So,
our
yeah,
aging. So, yeah.
Madison, I don't know if did you ever meet Professor Pribble, or did she start right after?
Yes, she started my last semester,
Yeah.
and I was in the one of the test classes, I think.
Hmm.
She came because you wanted it to be like an upper level class. And then she started hosting Chas Peak, which is like rush hour. And it's a little Russian tradition we used to have. It used to be run by a very dear mentor and friend named Professor Hamilton, aka Billy. And it would just be kind of like a little place where we could all come practice our Russian, talk about Russian cultural stuff, have some snacks. We used to play Russian Scrabble, but instead of actually playing Scrabble, we would see how many curse words we can make with the letters.
That's what Billy, yeah, that's
Yeah.
Billy.
Classic Billy activity. But Fribble had taken it over when I was getting ready to leave, and she had a lot of really I loved her Halloween activities. They were so she did a bunch of like Russian folklore creatures, and she had like bingo, I think. It was a good time. And she
Yeah,
brought
yeah.
kvass. Kvass is a Russian, it's like a Slavic. There's different I consider it Ukrainian, but there's a
It's,
few
the
different.
Eastern Europe, the borders in that part of the world are very,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's essentially bread soda. It's
Sort
like
of.
carbonated, bready. I've never had it because I actually can't have gluten, but
Yeah.
I've had other people in my life have it. And they always say it's really interesting, but it's pretty good. Jack, most recently, I was like, "Hey, look, I picked you up a can of kvass." He's like, "What is that?" I was like,
you've
"It's
converted him to
soda."
kvass.
He was like, "I don't know how I feel about that. I'll drink it." He was a good sport about
I
it.
like that mushroom tea that Julia brought from Romania. Yeah. We have some
Yeah.
Romanian cousins.
Okay.
Cordyceps tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so mushroom tea is basically kombucha. Like that's what kombucha
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is.
She kept calling it, I'm like, is that kombucha? It's like, yeah.
I had
It's not my favorite, but I think
when I
Jack,
was in Brighton Beach, I
yeah.
picked up
Yeah.
pine cone jelly
Yes, that's right. I remember you looked for
from
that at
Jam.
the, you
I've
wrote
been
that.
looking for that
Yeah.
for a while, and I
Yeah.
found it in Brighton Beach in a
Yeah.
specialty store. And I didn't love it. It tastes like biting into a pine tree, but I know some people really do
Acquired taste. Yeah.
like it. I personally not quite my taste, but it was interesting. And it's like new, it's pine cones before they harden. So it's like the green ones that you pick off the tree early and then they're just straight up in a jam jar. Like just all in there with jelly. Varenya. Yeah, Varenya. That
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that?
yeah.
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Varenya is
Varenья.
Varenya jar or
No,
jelly?
varenья is the jam.
Jam, yes. In
Yes.
a little.
Did we ever watch Masha and Medved's Madison? We're going completely in a different direction. I
Yeah.
don't know where this was going. I was going to talk
That's
about.
okay.
No,
Yeah.
but I watched it later
Oh,
to
have you seen
practice.
the episodes Dnем Varenья where she makes pine cone jam?
Yes. She makes the little jams. This
Yes.
is a Russian cartoon about Masha and a bear. And I don't know, they're friends. I feel like the bear's kind of annoyed by her sometimes, but they're friends in the woods. And Masha gets up into things. Classic rascally child.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Where I was actually going with this. Here's a screenshot of Masha E. Medved's. Um, if people want to see here. It's like
That's so
it's
cute.
yeah, this is a stamp
Yeah.
of
Isn't Nuvier just the word for bear?
it is. She normally calls him Misha, which is Mike, but it's what bears are called in Russian. That is to say, they when people talk to bears, they call them Misha as a nickname. So she normally calls him Misha. But maybe it's just Bear. But where I was actually going with this was that Kit, Professor Pribble, she's moving this week. They just bought a house, and she came over yesterday with Kopi, with her dog, for a doggy play date, and she was like, "Oh God, packing the books," and she's also got to move all the books in her office as well because they're like remodeling the offices in Greenhall again. Um, yeah, so she's t doing like all this book packing and
Yeah, books weigh a lot.
They
they
do.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack and I just moved, and
Yeah.
my books they were a lot. I feel like they all had to be brought in on hand trucks.
Yeah, I converted to an e-reader, which I fought for a long time, but it makes things a lot easier when you're traveling and yeah, so
Yeah, I mostly read e-readers or listen to
yeah,
audiobooks these
yeah.
days too. So I was saying like, yeah, it makes a big difference when you just have your Kindle and you just
Yes, and you have a thousand books
Everywhere.
on it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There is that. I do find that you remember and studies have shown, and my own experience is the same, is that you remember stuff better when you read it in hard copy.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. Yeah,
So
because I can remember books I read years ago, but then I was like, what was that book I just read? What was the name of that book? Because you're not picking up the book with a name every time, on the Kindle. Yeah, so I do read every day. It's just, yeah, I need to pay more attention, I guess.
yeah,
With a
yeah.
book, right? You're picking up the book and yeah, it's the
Well,
tactile nature, I guess.
yeah. I mean,
They
they
talk
think
about that like pen to paper, right? It triggers whatever the connection in your brain. It helps you hold on to, that whatever you're doing with that.
Somewhere in the
Yeah.
basement, there are massive notebooks of me just writing Russian over and
Yeah.
over and over again to try and
Yeah.
get the phrasing down. Just charts, and in my weird way of printing it instead of writing in cursive that everyone thinks is so weird. Because when you write Russian, when you do handwriting, you write it in the Russian cursive.
Mhm.
But because I'm dyslexic, I had a really hard time perceiving it. Like I couldn't perceive it as easily. So I always, in my own personal homework, I would print it out. And I showed my friend once, her name is Sasha. She's from Ukraine. She goes, wow, no one writes like that. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm aware.
so, side note to that. Well, first of all, I'll say like one of the things, that I put in the campaign is that Madison and I both have sort of like neurological issues of various sorts. We're both kind of neurodivergent in various ways. And the main character is also kind of neurodivergent in a fantasy character kind of way, and that she has, magical powers that make her different. We too have magical powers, Madison. They're magical. But I was just reading something really interesting. It was a book about the neuroscience of reading, and they are discovering ways to help like readers with dyslexia like to have experience massive improvement. Like it looks like there might be I don't know if treatment is the right word exactly, but it's like basically different ways of learning that it shows significant
I like
improvement.
tools.
Yeah, yeah, like learning
That's
tools.
exciting.
When
Yeah,
I was at Wait, they changed the name right before I left. It was the Office of Accessibility and Disability or whatever, and then it changed to something
it's class now.
class, yes. They offered me,
Hmm.
as someone who had dyslexia, they had an option where it was like almost like a screen reader almost, but you can upload your PDFs from class and they would read it to you and then highlight sections as it went so you could read it, hear it, and it would highlight green as it was talking to you. And one of the best things about that is it actually had a Russian setting.
Oh,
So I frequently put my Russian homework into it and would listen to it so that I could hear where the stresses were. Because in baby Russian, they'll put stresses over the words, but in big people Russian, they don't do that. You just are supposed to know where they are. And I find that when you do have certain neurodivergencies, it's not as intuitive. And that's the same with English grammar. I had to be sat down and taught exactly what the rules were. Like I never really picked up on them on my own. So it was nice to know that in other languages there were tools for me to be able to read them and understand them a little bit better. I want to say it took me quite a bit longer to catch on to anything if about the language. I was just so determined about it.
you were
It's like
certainly extremely determined.
Billy was like, "Are you sure you don't want me to put in a word for you for the disabilities office? We can see if we can get you out of this requirement." I was like, "No, Professor Hampton, they won't let me major or minor in it if you do that. I really, really want to study it, please." And he listened to me and was like, "Okay, okay, we'll figure it out."
Yeah, well, he was great that way. And
He was.
you went on to read Russian poetry in the original. So,
And recite it.
yes, and recite it. So
I
that
have a book somewhere that I got in Brighton Beach of oh, what's her name? Titsaeva.
Tsvetaeva, yes.
She was my favorite Russian poet, and I have a book in Russian of her poetry that I got from Brighton Beach in New York because Russia is a little sketchy to visit right now.
Yeah, it is currently like you can do it legally, but we're not actively encouraging students to go to Russia.
Well, I also work for the government now, which I feel like
Yeah,
certain places I'm supposed to be like, "Hey, can I go here?" And I feel like if I approached the general and was like, "Hello, General Ring, can I go to Russia right now?" He would just look at me kind of funny.
yeah, anyone doing government work or who has a security clearance, I think is not encouraged to go to Russia at the moment. I think Latvia or Georgia is a much better choice at the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Go
yeah,
to Japan instead.
Yeah, the inside or perspective there is Jack and I both want to get when we, do decide to get settled down and married, our honeymoon location is Japan.
Japan would also be awesome. Japan,
Yeah.
like I cannot say anything against going to Japan.
I want to see Okinawa. That's where my grandmother's family is from. And it would be nice to experience some home culture. I think as an anthropologist, as that being studied, even weaving it back into illustrations, I love folklore and I love weaving it into things. And it would be really nice to experience some of that folklore of our family that we kind of lost in the immigration process. It'd be nice to go back and take those, cryptid tours and the tea ceremony and visit shrines and just kind of because that's something I study about a lot of all the cultures. It's one of my more favorite things. Anyone in the anthropology department could tell you I'm kind of obsessed with it. And it, that and clothing. I was really, really always into the clothing. And my senior year, one of my my thesis capstone project for anthropology was all about representation and visual representation leading to cultural representation,
Hmm.
and the link between like racism and cultural biases coming from some of the visual things that we see every day. And then the other part of that capstone was a visual exhibit at the Lamb, which was our in-house anthropology museum, that was all about creating illustrations that were culturally relevant and culturally sound, So that's a passion of mine and something that I would very much like to experience in person one
That would
day.
be awesome. That would be great. Yeah. And it'd be really exciting to be able to weave that, like you said, back into the illustrations.
I really wanted to go to my plan was to go to St. Petersburg, in the Russian department when I first entered my
Hmm.
first year, Billy was like, "Where do you want to study abroad?" And I was like, "I would love to go to St. Petersburg." And we were working on making that happen. And then things happened and COVID happened, and it became kind of really difficult to study abroad during that time. But had that not happened, I would have gone to St. Petersburg for sure.
Well, maybe one of these years you will get to go to St. Petersburg.
I know.
I
God, the churches
strongly,
are so beautiful.
they
Oh,
are. I
I can't get
strongly
over
recommend
them.
it.
I look at them and I'm like, oh, and the waterways and the architecture, just so beautiful. And I want to have borscht that's not borscht I made because I'm sure it's inaccurate in some way.
You will be able to find borscht there. And yeah, I one of these years you will be able to go to St. Petersburg, and I strongly
Yeah.
recommend it. It's amazing.
Beautiful, beautiful place
Yeah.
from the pictures anyway. I can't say that I've been there in person,
So
but
I've been there in person a couple of times. One thing I will say about it is that the weather is not fantastic a lot of the time. Um, you want to be prepared for that. Like the weather is much worse in St. Petersburg than in Moscow, in my opinion. Uh, so
yeah.
that is a thing. And there's this like sort of competition between Moscow and St. Petersburg, and I'm a Moscow person. Uh, that being said, St. Petersburg is amazing. I mean, it is so beautiful. Like everything about it is sort of like it's like being in a museum, except that it's also a city. And I wouldn't say it's completely like, I mean, it's called like the Venice of the North, and it's sort of like Venice, but it's not,
Mhm.
because I've also been to Venice so a couple times. Um, but it's very different from Venice. It's like Venice in that there are these canals and waterways and things like that, but you're definitely in this far northern region, and it's just so magnificent. The buildings are so huge. It's just an amazing, amazing experience. So one of these years you will get to go to St. Petersburg, and I definitely recommend it. And then your illustration, like you can do all kinds of illustrations based on St. Petersburg.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Neat, neat.
I work with a special collection, so I've ended up drawing stuff based off, these are artifacts that we have. These are World War II era boots and some poppies. So everywhere I go, I end up, it changes the illustration game just a little bit. So I think that that's one of my favorite things about Baltimore, which is where I studied, was the architecture. And I feel like that made it into things occasionally.
Madison, let us see that picture again. I hadn't seen that. Look at that, babe. That is really cool.
Yeah, that's
It did
great.
not turn out like I wanted it to. It needs to happen again in a different medium, I think. I think this is more, I don't know. It's just not quite, I think it's good, but it's not quite what I had pictured. So I think it needs to happen again, but in watercolor and gouache and some
That would
ink.
be
But
amazing in
it's a good
watercolor.
layout start.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would look
Yeah.
really, really good in
It's a good
watercolor.
start. Yeah. So they always, I mean, I always end up, I feel like that's one cool thing about traveling, is that you pick up motifs from the place and the culture of the place, and then you end up putting them into the illustrations. And right now, most of my time is spent on military installations. So
You know,
yeah, this next week I get to go to Fort Belvoir, and so that'll be fun. And then back and forth. Back we have to. I guess Fort Belvoir has some mold, and so all of the precious artifacts that they have there need to be evacuated to another facility. And so I get to go up to Belvoir and spend multiple weeks trying to make sure all of it gets out so that we don't have some of the most amazing, like World War II. They have a lot of World War II stuff. They have a captured Nazi flag, which they sewed the insignia of the 29th Division, which was getting into historical nerdiness. It was one of the divisions from Virginia, the Virginia National Guard 29th, made up of the 116th and the 111th. And they were some of the first boots on the ground for D-Day invasion. And so they have, and the insignia is this blue and gray swirl, which everyone thinks is yin yang, but actually those two units fought against each other in the Civil War. So when the 29th Division was created after the Civil War, they have this insignia that shows that they've come back together again. The blue and the Richmond grays was the unit. So it is a ginormous, a beautiful, amazing flag. It's framed, and I am so terrified of how I'm supposed to get that from Belvoir to Richmond in one piece. Woof. But it's still it's really cool. It's a cool we'll see what comes out of that expedition, what sketches come out of that. But
Yeah, that should be amazing. I mean, amazing that you're getting to be, part of preserving that, and also a really good opportunity to maybe get some really interesting sketches.
they were also like, how about this 8 foot plane propeller from World War One? You think you can get that from one place to another? And I'm over here freaking out, like, oh my God, what if it cracks? What if it cracks? Oh my God, it's so old, it's wooden. I was like, what do I do with that? Like realistically I know what to do with that, but I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I had not thought about these logistics, but it very exciting, exciting, but
We
also
have
very stressful. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
we have all
Yeah,
the faith in you and Madison. You'll be fine. You'll be
I'm
fine.
sure it'll be fine. I have little diagrams that I've made of interesting contraptions to make out of pool noodles and plywood to try and get it from one place to another without shifting the pressure, having it crack or anything. So exciting. Totally off topic, so sorry. But that's the day job
Right, right. Well,
of the artwork.
I mean, all of this whole project is kind of like this. It brings together the day job and the other job in a way, right? Because like I wrote this book while I was in grad school, and now we're doing this kind of like undergrad professor project together. Although you've graduated, so you're no longer an undergrad technically, but so we're sort of like, oh,
It's not showing up. This is my, oh God. It's not coming out. This is my master's.
yay! Yay!
Yay!
Woo! Woo! But yeah, this whole thing sort of brings together the day job and the artistic stuff on the side as well. Um, well, we've only got a couple more minutes, so anything that anyone wants to ask or add, I'm really excited. Well, again, thank you everyone for coming, and for those watching later, thank you so much. And I'm really excited about working on the next set of illustrations, and I think we got some really exciting ideas. But any last questions, comments, anything like that?
Just thanks again for including us, or including me at least. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for including us, and we look forward to see what happens.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you
sure
for
it's going to be
backing
lovely.
us
Yeah,
so we
thank you
could
so
do
much for
cool
backing
things.
us. Huge
Yeah.
thanks. Huge thanks. And yeah, we'll be, updates. I guess Madison and I can talk about a timeline for getting maybe some sketches. And
Yeah.
once we have some sketches, then we'll start sharing them with backers, and they can sort of follow along on that. I'll
Oh,
keep
nice.
updated on the
Mhm.
process of, the sketches and the finished illustrations. And then when I send everything off to the printers and get proof copies, and again, that's when I'm expecting the major slowdowns, because that's a slow process in general. And there's just been a lot of stuff going on with international shipping right now. Um, so just FYI about that. But I will definitely be keeping everyone updated every step of the way of that whole process. And so you'll be the first to see like sketches and things like that as they come out. Like a second,
All right,
like
very good.
Madison and I will see them first, but then I'll send them on to you right after that.
I'll probably start in the next few days trying to figure out layouts, what's most important options, because the spatial direction of a scene really is important. It's the first thing you kind of need to get down, I think, or at least that's what I find to be most
Yeah,
important. So I'll
yeah.
probably start presenting options for, what perspective we're seeing things from, what exactly we're seeing, what the layout looks like, and then bye.
Hi.
See you tomorrow. We're going to the pool.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. And I will see if I can get um some kind of a basic template for the slipcase. They should have templates. The thing is to get like the actual
Yeah,
template, you have to have the books finished so that you know what size it's going to be.
yeah.
But if I can
If
get
you,
sort of like a basic template, so
yeah,
you get some kind of idea.
rough dimensions, I think would be okay, and then I can kind of go from there of making them like bit by bit, putting it, piecing
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much for coming and great to catch up with you, Madison, and talk to you. And you and I will be in touch, and I'll be in touch with all the backers soon with updates on progress. And I'm going to stop recording now.